Okay,
Bryan and Nick live,
yep, we're back in the Budget Home studio. We're around at Nick's place.
sitting in the kitchen.
Yeah,
We've propped the phone up on something so if it falls over in the middle and looks to have taken a nosedive, that's Bryan's fault for not being great with balance.
we don't have very much equipment. We're poor, and as a consequence, we have to just do what we can. Anyway, on the iPhone, and we're to kind of do a general catch up about everything and anything.
So you just said something, Bryan, which is very pertinent to the conversation. Year 2016, and you said we're poor. Well, we've reached a peak of our wealth, I'd say. We can only go bloody downhill from here, and we didn't have a lot. So in a relative term, we are impoverished, but we've got this technology, we can talk to you, so we're reasonably happy and well fed.
Well, this is right, and I mean, like, I'm afraid I don't like working, and I do goof off a lot. I enjoy just doing nothing, and that's not very good, really, guys. But however, I've got to the age where I've kind of like earned the right to be that way a little bit, and I think Nick is actually feeling the same.
Yeah, I am. I've actually got an enforced break from work at this very moment, and one of the issues I have is the motivation of actually getting back in there and doing something. I'm saying to myself, well, what's it all about?
Yeah.
You know, as you do, you need to reflect on things at some stage.
Well, our friends in the UK on our Hidden Reality understand these issues quite well. Justin, of course, is highly motivated because he's a young man, and we like that. And, of course, Dave is semi-retired, but he's been doing a bit. And I think he describes himself as being lazy. Well, you know, that could be one way of saying something about himself, but I don't think so. But I think actually as you get older, you tend to want to do a little less.
Yeah, I'm not so sure if it's a little less in terms of quantity or volume. I think what you want to do when you're older, and this is very pertinent to my way of thinking about things, is that you want to see the wood for the trees, and you don't want to make all the sort of messing around and flapping about you did when you were younger. And you know, you've learnt those mistakes, so when you've done something, you just want to do it, and then you want to go and have a cup of tea. You know? There's no sort of like, I don't want to sit there and glory about it. I just want it to happen, and you know, that's the way it is.
Nick and I have just had a cup of tea down in the village, very close. A couple of nice cafes down there. We're lucky here in Brooklyn, Wellington, New Zealand.
Yep.
Anyway, on to bigger things. The farm's sort of imploding here in New Zealand. We're on hard times again, despite all the bullshit that's coming from a national party, which is, you know,
so like a Tory equivalent,
Republican
equivalent,
the party of power in New Zealand. And of course, you know, the thing is that don't let the truth get in the way of a good story, and so they keep telling the good story.
Which, might I say, 99% of the population pick up, and perhaps I'm being harsh about my fellow man, but we seem to have lost, as a culture, the ability to question and observe. So we're so very used to being spoon-fed. We don't have to make the effort. We've got automation everywhere. You know, if we can automate it and not do it, we do. And we do that with our own private lives and our own thinking, which I find rather disturbing.
We've been successfully dumbed down. And I know, again, our friends in the UK, I know Justin is quite familiar with this term, and he feels confronted by it, I'm sure. It is an issue, I think, along with the new technology. There's a kind of like a lethargy and an apathy, a laziness going with it. But the wonderful thing is it's all here for us. We don't get the real oil from the media, and so we're having to actually try and, you know, pick and...
You know, one of the things I say here is we've got our own alternate media, which we're watching right now. Now, I saw someone in town the other day actually making a documentary using a selfie stick, and I thought, yeah, that's pretty good. They're actually getting the background and everything else they want into it. And it is reasonably easy, but it reminded me of the first time I saw a selfie stick, which is about 18 months ago. I was in Beijing, in Tiananmen. And this man sort of offered he had a walking stick which looked rather strange, and then he attached his cell phone to it and he held it up and he was looking back on Chairman Mao's mausoleum and taking a photograph of himself. And he'd no sooner pressed the button when half a dozen army personnel grabbed him and bundled him into the back of the wagon. You know, I thought, yeah, that's the way to treat them. If we could actually get that way, you know, in a crowd of people with selfie sticks, just arrest them for being vain and...
Well, we're kind of like using a selfie stick now, but it's a copper, some kind of copper pot that Nick's
It's
got in his
actually
kitchen.
really interesting, guys. You're worried about Syrians. This pot comes from Syria, and my wife did the old Hindu Kush trail right the way through the Middle East to in a V-dub from India through to London. And an old V-dub, like I say, and the pot itself she picked up on the way, and it was made out of a copper shell case, not a brass one, and it was beaten out in front of her, and it's still sitting on the table here, and it will be sitting on someone's table in 200 or 300 years, and it's a great example of what can be done by hand, by craft, that, you know, we're too easily just replacing with machines-made stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, consumerism.
Yeah.
And I mean, like this pot, which Nick is quite right, it has been hand beaten. You know, this is the artisan, and this is an age where work was meaningful and so forth. So, I mean, we've stripped away a lot of the dignity that we used to have. But I think actually the worst part of it is the fact that we put up with unnecessary hardship, and that is actually a political issue. So not that long ago, you could retire in New Zealand at age 60. Well, of course, you know, this would suit Nick, and to quite honestly, I'd be happy to. I would have been happy to have retired a little earlier than that. But however, there is no reason why the retirement age shouldn't be brought back to 60. We listen to all this crap from the commentators and people who are telling us that we have to work to 70 now, or to 67 and 70, and the age of retirement has to go up further. So basically what happens is you work your entire life, and when it comes to retirement, you'd be lucky if you get 6 months and you're dead. Now,
Yeah.
I mean, this is really an outrageous situation which we seem to be taking lying down. I mean, you just print enough money for everybody. You create enough money for everybody. You tax everything, the family home included. Everything gets taxed. And so you've got a situation, you balance it all out. And there's no reason why it shouldn't happen. I mean, it's just absolutely out. There's not enough work for everyone now.
Yeah, and that is, I mean, I used that dreaded term automation before. I actually believe that what we've done is we've actually thinned out the productive area so, you know, successfully. This whole bollocks we had about a service economy is ended up with people getting degrees and actually ending up working as a barista for the next 10 years trying to pay off a student debt.
Yeah.
And it's really, it's not only intergenerational theft, I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah.
We of the older generations are having our luxury to a large degree of at the expense of our youth. And we transfer all that money and tie it up in speculation in terms of property and so on. And social responsibility's gone out the window.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would say, that's a left-wing thing to say, Nick. I'd say no, that's a societal thing to say. That applies right across the board. It's a failure to actually recognise the reality and face up to the consequences.
It's a very unfortunate division that's been created between the so-called left and right, and in actual fact they're kind of like a circle, because if you go far enough left you'll come right anyway.
Yeah.
You go,
I've been round 3 times now.
and I mean, it's always political, and of course basically all it is this is just an apology for an unfair and unjust society. I mean, basically the banks are always going to be involved in propping up the artificial value of property. It appears that it's not just, you know, a local thing. I mean, it's all around the world now.
Whatever we do in New Zealand's reflected elsewhere. I mean, we live in a totally globalised economy.
Yeah.
I was reading that...
not just here.
Yeah.
I mean, we reflect as well.
And you know, just to give you an example, on the automatic earth I was looking at a headline taken from one of the Chinese papers. Exports have diminished 25% and imports have diminished 18% in the last 6 months in and out of China. And China is the industrial powerhouse of production in the world at the moment. And then I look at our papers, and we had a dairy price which was going up, I think somewhere in the region of about $7 or $8 at the farm gate per tonne payout for dairy. And the farmers were making all of their farms work to these particular numbers. Well, that's down to half. We're at $4, $3.50 the farm gate, which is halved in the space of 2 years. The stress, the financial stress comes in right at that area, and it feeds right way down. And I look around and think, oh yeah, what's happening elsewhere? Well, you've got the likes of, you know, our mate with the haircut, Mr. Donald.
Yeah.
Donald the man, who I'm very jealous of because I don't have a Wolverine on my head. And he's picking up a lot of voters around the old American rust belts where, you know, Detroit got shut down. And you got Bernie Sanders picking up the same kind of disaffected vote. These are the people who've they've been bypassed by the economy, and you know, you can shut them up while the economy is doing okay, but when the economy starts to tank, they come forward first because they're already dead.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
financially.
this rich poor thing is a social construction, and I have to say that the inequity that has developed is actually offensive to human dignity. Yeah. And I don't see why, you know, people should have to feel they have to make some kind of defence for saying that. It is just simply outrageous that we have rich, poor, the way we do, and it's become a very global thing now. Yeah. So there'll be sectors of people who will, if they're lucky, they'll get a bit of education, but they'll never have a proper job or a real job in terms of how that's classified today. And I mean, like, their lifetime, they've been condemned to misery, really. And on the other hand, you've got this other group who are privileged and exploit, and it's just totally unacceptable. Yeah. You don't need to actually have a whole lot of words and fancy stuff to, you know...
We have a wonderful, wonderful magazine which grew out of our broadcasting corporation back in the 30s. It's called The Listener, and it's sort of like a weekly TV guide, but it's got half of the front ends, all the social issues of the day and whatever. And it got bought up by Fairfax Media, who are a good bloody neo-lib right-wing bunch. And the stories which were about, you know, what was happening in science, what was happening in society and whatever, 20 years ago used to be really balanced. But nowadays what we have is a continual hash of, you know, stories about the worried world, the middle class who might get cancer if they don't take antioxidants, and, you know, all of these things you've got to do to increase the price of your house, but it's all about this sort of narcissistic me, I might have it, so, you know, you're going, for fuck's sake, you know, excuse my language, everyone, I don't need to read about the angst of wealthy people like myself. Our angst is nothing compared to the people who've got real angst when it comes to putting the food on the table for the kids.
Yeah, so I mean, like, life presents us with so many difficulties, and for one thing, which of course it gets sanitised, but you know, whether rich or poor, some of the issues are quite general that afflict us. You know, I mean, we've been wealthy may give you a few extra years in this life, but in the end you'll be terminated just like everyone else. We all die. And so the thing is, the outrageous thing is that you know, people should be given a fair crack at their time in life. I mean, that should actually just be an absolute that we just can't dodge. It should be a right that all human beings are entitled to. And let's go back to, you know, the thing about the right to food, income, shelter, you know, and education. And we could give this to everybody. It's only a question of political will. But no, we've constructed this really evil system that oppresses majorities and gives minorities, the
Yeah.
privilege.
I know I like to promote our videos. I would encourage anybody there who wants a description of the mechanics of today's politics to listen to, Google it, get him on YouTube, Tariq Ali, T-A-R-I-Q, Ali, A-L-I. Tariq Ali talking about the extreme centre, and what he talks about there is that there is the centrist consensus now, which enables people like myself to actually dominate the world, so long as we fit within the bounds of our great middle class, upper class neo-lib life.
Yeah.
And it is so extreme that it means anybody who's not cannot actually break into that without massive difficulty, and that our particular luxury and our political luxury and our economic luxury is done because we ignore what happens on the peripheries of the centre.
Yeah. So, look, we've run up to 16 minutes, so we're going to stop this one. But just in closing, here's a message for all the Jews and Christians. Okay. I don't mind them doing the evangelical stuff. I understand that. But there's a bottom line for me as well. God doesn't want us to be poor, and we can do something about it. Okay, now, I don't care which way you look at this, but if you look at the first century church, they made provision for all those who are in need. And if you're claiming to be, and you're nominal, or you're going to a church, or you're aligning yourself with Judaism or Christianity, and you're not actually part of this redistribution, you're not in the boat. I don't know where you are, but you're not there, because, that's what the first century, with the inspiration of Jesus, was doing. They were looking after one another, and the church was actually a meal. So they provided for the most basic things. They went from house to house having common meals. Now, I don't call the sacrament sipping at a bit of wine that everyone else has had their mouth in, and a piece of dry biscuit a common meal. This is actually just a fast.
It's called a cocktail party.
This has become farcical. So we won't be talking about the Book of Enoch either today, but we'll leave that for another time.
So we'll end this, and we'll go forth with a great wailing and lamentation and gnashing of teeth, renting of hair, and we'll come up with an answer.
Oh, I think we have. Okay. Well, we'll see you next time.
See you guys.